I want to talk a little bit. This came up. So last week before, I put a short out very quickly saying, "Hey, if you're trying to help homeless people, in your parish, and the municipality is trying to stop you because it's in violation of this law or that code or whatever the case is, here's one word, and the word is vigil. You can open your church up. They can't stop you from having a prayer service, a silent vigil, silent, quiet, all dark vigil all night long. They can't stop you from doing that." And it was in regards to a pastor in Ohio, in a place called Bryan, Ohio, who was arrested. He wasn't fined. He was arrested by the police. And I did the short because it was inspired by this pastor who had opened his church 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in order to provide for the homeless of his community. And of course, the police showed up one day and they arrested him. And so I've gotten a couple of people send me some information and saying, "Hey, listen, you didn't know the whole story. He wasn't arrested because it wasn't just arrested because he was helping the homeless. He was arrested because of this and this and this. You need to get your story straight." Well, I knew the story. I didn't do a whole video on the story because it was just the idea of a municipality, of a city, of a town, and of somebody trying to stop you from helping people as a part of a church, that they can't if it's a religious service. Okay. But they did ask me to address this. One person said, I'm really looking forward to how you're going to address this, and so I want to address this. If you don't know the story, pastor in Bryan, Ohio, wanted to help the homeless in his community. So last March, he opened 24/7. Okay, he opened his church 24/7. Now his church is downtown. It's in the middle of a commercial shopping area. There's offices. There's I think like city halls nearby. There's restaurants. It's a downtown. It's a very, I guess it's the prototypical, stereotypical downtown. And I mean, the police, like for a year, like he's been doing this for almost a year now. And the police would call him and say, "Hey, listen, we got somebody who needs some help. Can we bring them by?" And he'd say, "Absolutely, bring them by." And they've done this many times. And he, he was under the impression that everything was cool, everything's copacetic, except for the fact that the reason he was arrested is he was arrested on 18 charges. 18 charges stemming from zoning and code violations. There was apparently a lot of stuff in his church that wasn't up to code, including, from the sounds of it, some really, really dangerous stuff. Now, I'm only speaking about what's been reported. I've never been in the building. I'm not somebody that could look at his gas lines and say, "Oh, this is up to code," or "This isn't." Just simply going by what I've read in the news. That there were a lot of things that were really quite dangerous to anybody in the building. He didn't have the bathrooms that he needed in order to have people staying overnight. He didn't have this. He didn't have that. He wasn't zoned for this kind of activity. And so they arrested him. Here's the thing. Again, I said it earlier. As somebody who has a tendency to jump in with both feet without thinking, I would easily see myself saying, "Oh yeah, no, let's just open the hall." Years ago, I would have seen myself saying, "Let's just open the hall and we'll include people and we'll get people in and we'll get people to do this and we'll get people to do that," without checking anything. But the truth is, in my city, there's a lot of different things that I would need to do in order to have people staying overnight in this building. One of which is I have to have showers. I believe I have to have laundry facilities. I think I have to have laundry facilities. I have to check on that one. But I need to have showers. I need to have so many people working here. I need to have volunteer, whether they're paid or not. I need to have people working here while there are people here overnight. You need to have certain beds. You need to have certain provision. There needs to be certain spacing. There's a lot, obviously. Then there's a fire code and all the different fire codes. How many multiple exits do you have? And how would people get out of the building in case of an emergency? Do you have fire extinguishers where you need to be? And are they the right size? And okay, lots of different things we would have to do in order to pull that off. When you take on a mission like this, and we saw it, I think it was in Oregon last year, there was an Episcopalian church. It was either in Oregon or in Washington, who they decided they were going to serve meals like 2-3 times a week. And their neighbors lost their minds. And the city came along and said, you can't do that. You don't have zoning to do that kind of thing. You can do it once in a while, but you can't do it that often. When you take on these kinds of, as a church, when you take on these kind of ministries, you're going to tick off your neighbors. Your neighbors are not going to be happy with you. They're not going to be happy with the clientele that are now in their neighborhood. They're not going to be happy with the people walking their streets, walking past their homes. They're not going to be happy with the people who are walking their dogs along that on their lawn. They're not going to be happy with the people who are sleeping on the side of the street. They're just not going to be happy. And those people are going to complain. Which is why we talked about Romans 13 last week. Right? Respect the authority of the land. The authority of the land has been given by God, and you need to respect them. You need to listen to them. You need to do what they say. And if you do what they say, you don't have to worry about anything. But if you don't do what they say, you're going to have to deal with them. It's why Romans 13 in a situation like this is really actually quite applicable. I need to make sure not only that I'm respecting the governing authorities, but I need to make sure that I am dead on, that I have every I dotted, every T crossed when it comes to codes and zones, and all the forms are filled out. I need to make sure things are done in triplicate. I need to make sure that I am absolutely on the right side of the law. I need to be on the exact right side of the letter of the law, so that when the people complain, the law can't do anything. Right? The authorities have to say, sorry, they got all the forms filled out. They've got all the zoning code. They got all the zoning permits. They got the coding. Their building is completely perfectly up to code. As a matter of fact, their building is beyond code. Now this pastor, he didn't do this. And I know what that's like, because again, in my early days as a minister, I would jump into stuff without thinking at all. But you do learn when you get burned a couple of times, when you get bitten a couple of times, you learn. Chances are he got around. If I were to make a guess, this isn't a prophetic word, and I mean nothing disparaging against anybody, but my guess would be somebody complained. Right? The city wasn't, these zone violations, him not being up to code, it had been months and months and months, and they'd been sending him letters, and it's gone back and forth and this and that. My guess is they were okay turning a blind eye until the complaints started rolling in. And when the complaints started rolling in, they felt the pressure that they had to do something. And that's when they jumped in to do something. And when they jumped in to do something, this guy didn't have the safety of being on the right side of those earthly, worldly authorities. And it's too bad. But with the press that he's gotten, my hope is people jump on board and they get in there and they do everything they can to help him bring this building up to code. And if he can't bring it up to code, and if they just refuse to give him the zoning permits he needs to do this work in this place, then maybe with all this press, he's able to find a spot that he can do this ministry, a place where he can take care of the people, the homeless and the disenfranchised in his community. Because he's got the right heart. I mean, I don't know anything about him apart from this. This is the right thing. Reaching out to the people who are cold and who are hungry, the people who are without a roof over their head, without a pillow, blankets, without a bed. This is the right thing. My prayer is he's able to do this in the right way so that when those naysayers come along, when those people who don't want to see that kind of people walking through their neighborhood, well, I'm sure he won't say it this way, but he can tell them to go pound sand because he's got all the permits. He's got everything up to code. He's got all the zoning on his side. Amen.